In her near-death experience, Anastasia Wesseling Moellering saw that there is no right and wrong, good or bad, the way that we know it in the afterlife. This means that every soul, from the saint to the sinner alike, end up in the same place. What is this place that we all end up? And what does this mean for me, for you, practically speaking, in these lifetimes? Comment and let me know what you think about this. Should there be judgment in the afterlife?
Would you like to start by just sharing your near-death experience story with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So in December of 2019, I had an invasive dental procedure done, and it had required me to be sedated and have medication that I've never had before. And the dentist started to preparations, put a mask over my face, and I started taking in like nitrous oxide. And as the dentist then went on to prepare some of the other things in the room, I kept getting this really strange feeling, this sensation starting to come over me. And it was like I was lifting up out of my body when I was breathing, and then I would fall back down again. And then I would lift up and I'd fall back down again. And as this continued, it wasn't subsiding, and I was getting a little bit concerned. And having never done this before, I didn't know if it was normal or if it was something that I should raise to the dentist. So I just kept quiet because I didn't want to disturb the dentist. And as it started to continue, it got to a point to where I really felt like I was coming way out of my body, and I came back down and I thought, okay, that's it. I probably need to say something. And in the next breath, I'm no longer in the dental chair, but I'm now up in the ceiling looking down at myself in the chair. And now this is it's so hard for me to explain everything from this point on, because what I experienced was outside of time. There was really no feeling or sensation of time like we experience here, where one thing after another happens. It's more like everything all happens simultaneously, and I can just try to explain it like one thing happened after another, but it really felt like it all happened at one time. And so I'm looking down at my body and I'm thinking, what am I doing up here? And in that moment, I realized something it was so profound. It was like a flash of an epiphany. And I thought, I just said, what am I doing up here? I didn't say, what am I doing down there where my body is? I said, what am I doing up here with whatever it was that I was at that time in the ceiling, that part of me that was then looking down at my physical body. And I went, oh my gosh, we are not our bodies. And then my very next thought was, am I dead? And just like that, I flipped over and I am now like inches away from the ceiling. And this is so interesting because if you remember being a little kid and seeing something for the first time, and I'm not talking about like something really ordinary, I'm talking about like, an eclipse or something that you've never seen before that just takes your breath away. I was looking at all these little details in the ceiling, and I found them absolutely beautiful and miraculous. And I remember like the little particles of dust and the little cracks, and just thinking, that is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And just like that, it was like I blinked or a lens came down over my face and I was gone. I was out of the room. Now, at this point, I opened my eyes in what seemed like a flash, like it was really almost like a blink. And I am in absolute, it's a void. It's like it's nothing, but it's everything. And this feeling that I have is I am in complete and total oneness. And in this place, this is where it gets really, really hard to try to describe each piece because it all blended together as one. But I had this feeling that wherever I was, one, I didn't wonder where I was. I didn't worry about where I was. I didn't even really have much recollection about the physical body that I just came from. I had a sense of self. I knew who I was, that I had an individual sense of self. I remember that. But I remember so clearly that I was a part of this, what I call a oneness in this void. Now, I call it a void, but the better way to describe it is like it's a void of anything that isn't complete. It felt like everything in this place was absolutely complete. Everything that was to ever be known all existed there. Every soul experience, every soul was absolutely a part of this. And any experience that any of us have ever had through any soul experience was all accessible there. And it was a place of absolute knowing. And just like the time didn't exist when I was back in the room, but hovering over my body, time didn't exist here at all either. But it felt like I've tried so hard to find the words to describe some of these pieces because we just don't have a vocabulary for something like this. We don't live our day-to-day lives feeling at one with everything. We don't walk past our mailbox and feel like we're one with the mailbox. It's just not the way we live our lives. So we don't have a real vocabulary to describe these kinds of experiences. But it was as if I was one with everything, and that there had never been anything but being one with everything. And because of that, it felt like, and it gave me this sensation that I could look through the eyes of every single soul that had ever existed through all time and through any experience ever. And that all I had to do was just shift my awareness to something and I would be able to know it. Now, as I was picking up this sensation that I was connecting to something so big, I wanted to know everything. I remember wanting to know this and wanting to know that because there was still this part of me that had my individuality. And then there was this part of me that was connected to this oneness, to this everything. And I couldn't ask a question. No matter what I would try to do, I couldn't form a question. All I could do was be curious about it. And it feels to me that when I reflect back on that, the reason I couldn't form a question is because there, everything was already known. It would have been impossible for there to have been a question, because if there was a question, that would mean that something's not answered. And in this place, everything was answered. Everything was already known. Every outcome already complete. And as I was taking this in, I felt myself expanding, if you will, as I was taking in all of this knowing. And it felt like it was gaining like an acceleration or a momentum, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, it stopped and I was back in the dental chair again. And at this point, it was like I kind of felt like I had a foot in two worlds. It felt like I was still back in the void. And it felt like I was in the dental chair. And the dentist was there and he had his hand on me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I remember hearing his words. I remember knowing what he was saying. And I remember responding with like, "Yeah, I'm okay." But my interest was not in the dentist at all. Where before this whole thing started, I was so concerned about what was happening with me when I was starting to float above my body. That was gone. That concern out the window. At this point, all I wanted to do was hold on to that connection that I had, because it seemed like it was like an aperture. And as time was going, when I came back, it was closing down. And all of that knowing, all of that access to everything was slipping away. And it felt like it was just slipping through my fingers, and I was grasping, and I wanted to hold on to absolutely everything I could possibly hold on to. But there was nothing I could do. The connection was closing. But I brought back, of all the things that I brought back, I wish I would have brought back all of the knowing, but I brought back some really specific things. And I feel like I still have somewhat of a foot in that place still. Like the door is like cracked open. It hasn't completely closed, but I don't have that intimate connection that I had when I was there, when I was in the dental chair. And when I came back, I immediately thought, okay, we are not our body. That is so obvious. We are so much more than our body.
I recently booked another appointment with Jamie of Refractive Healing. I wasn't feeling my best, and there's no one that I trust as much as Jamie to work on my energy field. It happens every time, so I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. But after the session, I felt like a new person. My energy flooded back and all of my symptoms resolved. You may notice that I don't have many sponsorships on this podcast. That's because I only partner with people that I 100% believe in. I'm excited to announce that Jamie has recently expanded her offerings. If you're curious about energy work, or you just want to try something new, visit refractivehealing.com to explore her new sessions, take advantage of special offerings, and book your distant healing session today. Thank you to Jamie of Refractive Healing for partnering with me in this video.
And when I came back, I immediately thought, okay, we are not our body. That is so obvious. We are so much more than our body. And I use the word soul because I don't have a better word. There may be a better word that really represents the part of us that is more than our physical body, but without having a better word, I'll use the word soul, that we are a soul in a physical body, and that our physical bodies are nothing more than like a sensory tool for us to collect sensory information about the physical experience, and that it gets shared at the soul level because the soul ultimately wants to have a direct physical experience and to be able to create here in a physical life. The soul is absolutely complete. That part of me that went into this void, that went into this oneness, was absolutely complete. And that's been something that, without a doubt, was so clear to me. But it was also clear to me that with that completeness, it also meant in that place that I was at, there was no good or bad. There is no right or wrong. There are no lessons to learn in the physical life in a way that translates to the type of experience or a judgment that you may have on the other side. Now, how you live your life here in the physical world absolutely is going to have a good or a bad sensation for you, depending on your experience. If you experience something traumatic, it's not going to feel good. If you experience something blissful, it's going to feel great. But those actions, as they translate to the other side, did not translate in my experience into anything that meant that you would be judged. And that judgment is not like a sorting tool. It's not like the Harry Potter sorting hat, right? You're not going to go into this place or this place depending on your actions. It was really about you reconnecting to this part of you that you've always been connected to, but you didn't have the ability to bring it into your physical body for whatever reason. And so when you connect to that oneness on the other side, you have the ability to create these experiences that you want to have in the afterlife. The part of me that saw all these different experiences when I was in the void, all the different souls, all the different experiences, all the different lifetimes, it was as if you were to take all 7 billion of us here on this planet right now and take a piece of thread, wrap it around the globe, maybe about 100,000 times, take that thread, stretch it out straight, so it would be, hundreds of thousands of miles long. Then take one little itty bitty fiber off of that thread, put all 7 billion people of us here right now on that thread, and that would be the equivalent of how long your experience here in this lifetime would be in comparison to your entire soul experience. So that even doesn't come close to comparing it, because it is so, so, so big. It's beyond our comprehension. The connection of oneness, of bliss, of peacefulness in this place is unlike anything I have ever experienced in this physical life. But I understood that it's not that we're trying to get through this physical experience to get to the other side after we pass. It's not like we're trying to check boxes here to get into an afterlife that we ultimately want to have forever and ever and ever. It felt very much like we are learning to bring that bliss that's a part of us at the soul level into our physical experiences. And that little bit of a doorway that I have open, I feel that just like a little flashlight, if you will, connection. And it reminds me, when I really put my awareness to that connection, just how much amazing creative power and potential we have when we feel that deeper part of ourselves within our physical body. And so I have spent the last, I guess, almost 2 years now, really trying to piece this together, trying to find the words to explain it, because no matter how many times I add new adjectives or adverbs to it, it still just doesn't even come close.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know it's so hard to put it into words, but I think you've done a fantastic job. Just the way that you describe things is you bring a new awareness to it that I've never heard from anybody else's story. So thank you for that.
I try as much as I can. Every once in a while, I'll be, driving or doing something that is, kind of mindless. And it seems like in those moments, that's where I'll have like I could use this to describe this part of my experience, or I could use this comparison. But overall, no matter how many different ways I've tried to slice it, there's something so much bigger outside of this physical experience. And I'm sure where I went was, maybe even scratching the surface.
So you talked about the void and how it's a void. Everyone describes it as the void, but yet at the same time, you said, I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said it's the absence.
It felt like it was the absence of anything not complete.
Okay.
So the only thing that existed there was completeness, but it was completeness that hadn't formed into anything yet.
That's just what I was going to ask. I was going to say, do you think it's like the potential for everything that has ever existed?
That's kind of the way I've landed on it for now. I mean, over time, I think as I process things, I might find a better way to describe it. But it seems like it is maybe the well of all of our creative potential and all of our, that part of us that isn't our physical body that does exist there. It could be the place where we all come together and we have that connection to everything. It is a little bit challenging, because when people describe a void, and I've heard many NDE stories now where people have gone to the void because, believe it or not, I've become a voracious consumer of NDE stories. Yes. And it seems to me that for the most part, 90% or so of the people that I've listened to or that I've talked to personally about the void, we've all had the same experience of it being something beautiful, of something comforting, like being in a womb where you're just wrapped in something so pleasant, but yet you have complete awareness of it. And you feel as if you're in a place where anything is possible, but anything in a place of where you want to to know more. You want to understand more. You want to be a part of it more, not where you're feeling, at least for me, I didn't feel scared at all. There was not even an inkling of being scared. It was more like, I want to get out my lawn chair, lay down, get my umbrella drink, and stay there forever.
Yes. Yes. I can relate to that. So along those same lines, with the void containing like the potential of everything that has ever existed or ever will exist, and then contrasting that with the physical experience, because what I like about your message is that you're saying this physical experience matters. And a lot of spiritual paths, it seems the goal is to sort of maybe over spiritualize things sometimes and lift us out of this physical experience. But it seems like maybe there's supposed to be more of a balance, like between the void where we are in that state of oneness and connected to everything, and then the manifestation of that into the physical or whatever else there is where we're having an individual experience. What do you think about the balance between those two?
Yeah, I think that we are connected the strongest from our physical body to that soul part of us through our feeling.
Okay.
And I talk about it very specifically in terms of what I mean by feelings. So what I mean by feelings are the part of us that is that constant state of an experience. So you may have this experience of love, of unconditional love, of a wave of peacefulness. Those are feelings. Those are the experience of being in the physical body versus emotions, where emotions are often reactive. It's where we are responding to something that has happened in our life or has happened, or we're responding in anticipation of something that's going to happen. And it creates an emotional reaction, which is, chemical and mental in nature. But that is not the feeling part of us. The part of us that would actually be objective and observe those emotions, that would be closer to the feeling part that I'm talking about. It seems to me that of all the things from my observations of a physical life, that we tend to resist the most as humans is getting into a place of feeling. It tends to be the scariest thing for many people to do. And that is the place where we have the strongest connection to that soul part of us that is part of that infinite potential, that creative energy, that any word, God, source, love, they all fit. All those words will fit into this experience. And when we connect to that and we bring that more purposefully into our lives on a day-to-day basis, then we are bringing in more of that. It's cliche, but I think it's one everybody can relate to. It's that experience of heaven on earth. It is bringing that part of us that is complete, that is healed, that is unconditional love, that has all the connection to understanding where we want to go and what we want to do in this physical life, what we want to experience. That all resides in our soul, but we have to open up from a physical standpoint to get to it. So I think when you talk about the balance, it's pretty accurate. The paradox is to get to that connection, we often have to let go of a lot of the physical things in some ways to allow that door to open in order for us to get access to the feelings. We have to get rid of our, kind of our thought processes where we're projecting ourselves into the future or we're really worried about the past. We have to allow and let things unfold with a sense of faith and trust. And that can be really challenging because I can imagine 100% of us have all experienced some level of pain and heartache and trauma that acts as a kind of a big chain lock over the door that would let us get to that place where we can really feel. And so, yes, it's a balance. We want to bring more of that into the physical. But the paradox is we have to let go of some of the things that we've built up as our defenses in order to get there. And there are a lot of tools, a lot of spiritual or tools where people maybe that are in like religious cultures that use to have a sense of something bigger than themselves. Those are all really great ways to kind of get out of our own way, if you will, because what we need to do is really be able to acknowledge that connection in order to bring it more purposefully into our lives on a day-to-day basis.
I believe you said that you grew up in an agnostic or atheist household, and I'm interested if your views on God or religion have changed since your experience.
If you are a spiritual experiencer or a spiritual seeker and are looking for a safe community to connect with other spiritual experiencers and seekers, to be able to share in a safe space, I've created a safe online community called The Sanctuary. We have a thriving, supportive community. We do bi-weekly live Zoom calls together to connect on a deeper level. And I also have a simple, implementable coursework called Awaken Your Divinity, which is designed to be a simple step-by-step process to practically implement spiritual practices that will help you to connect to that love and bliss state that so many people experience in their NDEs, but then don't know how to ground into their day-to-day life. If you're ready to connect with a supportive, like-minded spiritual community and connect deeply with your own divine nature, check the description box in the pinned comment for the link. Also, if you're looking to go a little bit deeper, I am offering 25% off on my one-on-one 4-session coaching package. I offer a combination of energy healing and spiritual coaching to help you remove your blocks from connecting deeply with your divine nature. I only have about 4 slots open right now. You can book a free 30-minute discovery call to find out if this program is right for you.
I would say my views have radically changed, but they're actually changing, I think, more on a day-to-day basis now than if I look back in my life. So I was raised by an atheist. And, we did not have any type of belief in my household. It was more about I was taught to be a good person. I was taught to be honest. I was taught to treat people with kindness and respect, not because of a consequence if I didn't, but because that's how we treat people. And so I was brought up with morals and with, values, but it wasn't in the context of religion. Fast forward to my 20s, and I got married in my first marriage, and my then husband's family was a pastor's family. And so he was a pastor's kid. His dad is a pastor. And I was basically thrown into Christianity in a very direct way because of my experience with family and doing different events with the family. And that didn't fit well for me for a lot of reasons. And later on, I started having some things that I was experiencing that I just could not explain. I was having precognitive dreams. I was having out-of-body experiences. And these were things that I knew nothing about. I didn't know about any of these concepts, but they were happening to me. And because they were happening to me, I wanted to know why. So I went on like a deep exploration of other experiences and reading books and trying to build a vocabulary for that experience because I just didn't have one. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward into my 30s, and my then husband and I got divorced, and I really found myself more in spirituality. And so I explored that because it seemed to me that there was something about the experience of going to church and a God and that I was gravitating to, that I felt there was a connection for me at the time, but it didn't fit for me to put it inside of a religious box. And so I was looking for what did fit for me. And spirituality was something I dabbled in for a while in my 30s, but it seemed to me that spirituality came with a lot of, at least from the part that I had exposure to, came with a lot of mysticism, and that didn't fit for me. And so I was really looking for, why are we here? And interestingly enough, I feel like with my experience that I had, I got that answer. It's almost as if that was something within me that I just so deeply wanted to know, that was the part that I connected with the strongest in my NDE, and was why I was able to bring that piece back. Now I feel like there is a part of us that is part of a greater energy, God, source. All these words carry so much different, dogma and beliefs tied to them. So it's hard to find just the right one, but there's a part of us, I feel like, that is a part of something bigger, and we can call it a God. I absolutely do not believe from my experience that I created the oneness that I was in. I would be so incredibly naive to think that, because it was so big. I was just a drop. I was a drop in this oneness. And so because I was a drop, that meant that everybody else was a drop too. But all together, we made this ocean of oneness that was in this void. But I felt very strongly that if any one of those drops didn't exist, then the entire void, God, oneness would not be able to exist. And so we are all, even though we can feel so small and inferior compared to something as big as the idea of a God or this oneness that I was in, even though we can feel so small in comparison, we are absolutely integral. It would be as if a single cog on a gear didn't exist. That gear couldn't work no matter how many cogs there were. It needs every single one of us. And we are all part of this together, which makes us all vitally important and worthy and part of this loving God source oneness that is out there, that we're all a part of.
That's such an interesting and important point to me, to think that if a single one of us didn't exist, then God himself would not exist. It speaks a lot to some of the religious beliefs that we're taught, that say that either somebody could be eternally separated from God or be annihilated. And it just seems like that's not possible. What are your thoughts on that?
From my experience, that seems to fit what I came back with. So I've used this example before, and it's not a great example, so I'll preface that right away. But I've used this example where our physical bodies are kind of like a self-driving car. Mm-hmm. And the physical body is wired completely to survive. It was programmed to learn about its environment as the body interacts with things in life. And with every interaction, with every learning, then the body understands what it needs to do to avoid risk and potential death, and also what it can do to seek pleasure and things that are enjoyable. And so with that in mind, it's as if our physical bodies have a mind of their own in that regard. And it is on autopilot. When the soul is in the physical body, attempting to drive the physical body, if you will, then the soul can become the driver when the car realizes that there's a driver. So it's as if we go through life in autopilot, mm-hmm. and then realize at some point, some people do, I suppose, maybe some people don't, that there's a part of us that's more than their physical body. And they begin to seek for that, and they find parts of it, and then they begin to bring that part into the physical body. It's as if all of the learnings that we have from the soul experience, so all the learnings we have here as a physical and the learnings we have in other soul experiences and other lives, all of that knowledge that we collect, I guess, is what contributes to the all-knowing that existed in that place of oneness. And so if you weren't having your experience, if I wasn't having my experience, if everybody wasn't having their experience, then that all-knowing couldn't exist, because that information wouldn't be available And I'm using information as a very dry word. It's much more important than just data. We're not automatons, if you will, but it is as if it all has to be there. It all has to be part, or it just won't be complete.
I could go on a whole tangent here. It reminds me of the Sanskrit concept of God as being consciousness bliss, like God is eternally experiencing God's self.
It's interesting you say that, because I did at one point really feel strongly that God was not a noun, that God was a verb. And it feels to me that, this notion of that soul part of us is a feeling. More than anything, we understand it most directly as a feeling. At least I understand it most directly as a feeling. And feelings are not things. Feelings are fluid and dynamic, but they're also complete. You can't tell anybody that the feeling that they just had wasn't real, because the most real thing any one person can experience is their true, authentic feelings.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are your thoughts on evil? I believe I heard you say in your other interview that from God's perspective, evil doesn't exist, but maybe you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, I want to be really cautious that I don't use the word God in this context, because it does have a lot of different connotations for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So I will use the word the oneness, because for me, that really reflects more of what my experience was without any of those other potential beliefs tied to it. So from my experience, when I got to the void or to the other side, everything that I had ever experienced in this lifetime didn't matter except for what I felt. My feelings were absolutely accessible, and it felt as if I could access the feeling of any situation I was in at any time. Now, since then, learning about life reviews and things of that nature, I didn't have a life review, not in the traditional sense like I've heard from other NDE stories, but it felt to me that I was in sort of this place where I could access a life review, where I could access every single feeling I had ever had and every single feeling that anybody who had interacted with me or that I knew about, I could access that as well there. And so it seems to me that the things that we feel here, our experiences, are what we take with us. And so if we experience ourselves in a dark way, like we experience ourselves in a traumatic way, we can access and recall that experience in that place if we want. But it's so different. It's not like here when we experience something painful, it's almost as if that experience recalls itself in our mind in a way that can trigger a fight or flight feeling. In that place, you can experience it, but you experience it with more objectivity, more detachment, more of it's pure, you feel it, but it isn't tied to all of the potential fear, because there's no fear there at all. It's more like it just is really the best way to put it. And so evil, the way I've come to understand evil since my experience, to me seems like it is the act of those who have denied completely the access to their soul. And through life experiences, through their own pain, trauma, biology, they have built up a disconnection to a degree that is outside of what maybe many people tend to experience as at least a partial connection to their soul. And because of that, they do not act from a place of connection and oneness. They act from a place of response with a pain that is so deep, because that lack of connection is so painful that their actions and reactions on the outside we would call evil. From their perspective, it is an attempt to gain some sort of connection to something. And in the end, if any one of us had to feel what we would feel, what a person who we may call evil feels on the inside, it would be so crippling. I believe that it would take any person with an ounce of empathy to a different perspective about what do we do about people that we call evil. Because quite frankly, my thoughts are, if we were to truly try to bring more peace, love, and joy into this physical experience, if we were to try to create a heaven on earth, if you will, then it's not about eradicating those who we would call evil. It would be about providing the tools, the help, the care, and the love to help them build a connection. Keeping in mind that people who tend to get into that place probably didn't get there overnight. And there may be many, many factors, both nature and nurture, that contribute to somebody's what you would call an evil act. And so that could take generations to help support and undo. But ultimately, in the end, I didn't feel that there was good, that there was bad, that there just was, and there were experiences and there were feelings. And when we get to the other side, we all come back together in one without any fear.
What are your thoughts on the hellish experiences that some people have?
That is very difficult to wrap my head around. And I think it plays also into the question of, why does everybody have a different NDE? Now, there are common elements across many NDEs, and distressing NDEs, I think I read somewhere, account for no more than 5 or 10% of all reported NDEs. So the occurrence tends to be pretty small in comparison, but it still exists. So we have to acknowledge it. And I'm always cautious answering this question because I did not have a distressing NDE. And so I don't necessarily feel qualified to say what they are, why they exist, why somebody may have experienced them. I think there is an element of personal experience that happens in everybody's NDE. And so for those that have a distressing NDE, their personal reflection on their experience is going to be the best answer to that question than anybody on the outside looking in saying, well, my experience was really positive. Because as soon as I say that, I'm invalidating that other person's experience. And we've all have, just like we do in our physical lives. I might have a beautiful day and you may have a horrible day. But if all I do is talk about how great your day could be if you just changed or you just did things differently, I've just invalidated your entire experience. And so I think the keys to those experiences really have to be answered by those people that have had it.
I really, really appreciate your honesty. And I love that answer. So thank you. And my last question would be, what is the purpose of this life? And you've mentioned that our souls come here for the physical experience. What do you think we're trying to do here, or what are we doing here?
I really feel that we want to create in the physical, that we are ultimately creative beings. Our souls are immensely creative. And we want to experience creation here in a physical. We want to be able to create an experience that we want to have because we want to have the experience. And I've used this comparison before, and some people like it, and some people it really rubs them the wrong way. So if you're listening and this example rubs you the wrong way, I'm really sorry. But it's like when you go on a trip and you plan a vacation. You're planning a vacation not because you want to learn a lesson, not because you're attempting to gain some knowledge about something. You plan your trips because you want to have an experience. There's certain things you want to go see. You want to interact with things that you've never interacted with. You might want to go eat food you've never eaten before. You might want to see sights you've never seen before. You might want to go have time with somebody that is really precious and one-on-one with just the people that you're spending that trip with. And those reasons are at the heart of why we are here. We are here for the experience. And to discount that is to discount the very essence of what makes this life so beautiful.
Anastasia, would you like to talk for a few minutes about what you do and how people can get in contact with you?
Sure. So I am the owner of a holistic wellness studio in the suburbs of Chicago. We've been there for about 3 years now, and we work with people through a number of different holistic modalities, such as Reiki, coaching, fitness nutrition coaching, sound therapy, meditation, reflexology. We really try to offer as many different types of services as possible. So that way, those that are looking for an integrative plan for their wellness, they can find a little bit of something that will help them on their journey through us. We offer all that through what we call our online sanctuary, and you can access on-demand videos and coaching and things that will really help you on your both wellness and spiritual journey.
Thank you so much for watching. My guests' links can be found in the description box. If you have had a near-death experience, pre-birth experience, out-of-body experience, past or between life memories, or spiritual awakening story that you would like to share, find the link to apply in the description box. If you'd like to support the channel, we have a few fun ways that you can do that. I do have a merch store linked in the description. We've put some of the phrases on t-shirts that you guys requested. I have affiliate links to my favorite blue blockers, my favorite red light panel, and a couple of other companies that I work with. You can join my membership at the Sanctuary. You can sign up for an energy healing. I also offer a 4-session energy healing and spiritual coaching package at a 25% discount. You'll find all these links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. Now go live your most extravagantly loving life.